Out of India, a London-bound plane carrying 242 passengers and crew has crashed in the west of the country shortly after taking off.
The Boeing 787, once hailed as a breakthrough in modern aviation, promised unmatched efficiency, comfort, and innovation. Nicknamed the Dreamliner, it captured the hopes of engineers and airlines worldwide. But behind the sleek design and bold claims, a series of technical flaws began surfacing, raising safety concerns and unsettling passengers. How did this marvel become a cautionary tale? And could it signal the end of an aviation era? Let's find out. The dark truth behind Boeing's Dreamliner. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner was once hailed as the aircraft of the future, a sleek, long-range, fuel-efficient jet built with revolutionary carbon fiber composite materials. Its debut in 2009 marked a turning point in aviation history. Lighter than aluminum and much stronger, this material promised better fuel savings and performance. But behind the gleaming marketing lies a web of design flaws, fire risks, and safety concerns that are only now surfacing. And they're more serious than most passengers realize. The Dreamliner can seat around 242 to 335 passengers and boasts major upgrades in passenger comfort. Cabin pressure is optimized to reduce fatigue. Humidity is increased to prevent dry skin and eye irritation. And windows? They're about 30% larger than traditional aircraft and use electronic dimming instead of window shades. The engines are quieter. The cabin feels more peaceful. On the surface, it all sounds perfect. But here's where the cracks begin to show, literally and figuratively. To start the engine and operate essential systems on the ground, Boeing installed two powerful lithium-ion battery packs, one at the front and one at the rear. These batteries, known as the APU and main battery, were supposed to be a breakthrough in aircraft power systems, but they've sparked fires in multiple aircraft. Yes, actual onboard battery fires. And when you're flying at 35,000 feet, that's not just a hiccup, it's a potential disaster. Even more troubling is how Boeing responded. Investigations by regulatory bodies like the FAA and EASA confirmed the aircraft's safety back in 2011. But incidents involving battery malfunctions, electrical system failures, and even fuselage production quality have continued to haunt the Dreamliner program over the years. A string of airlines have reported issues that range from fuel leaks to cracking composite skins. And then there's the human factor. Whistleblowers from within Boeing have raised alarms about rushed assembly, manufacturing shortcuts, and inadequate inspections. All of these point to a troubling trend. The push for innovation may have come at the cost of safety. A series of serious malfunctions. The Boeing 787. Dreamliner was hailed as a marvel of modern engineering, sleek, efficient, and revolutionary in design. It was the first commercial aircraft to rely so heavily on carbon fiber reinforced polymer, CFRP, with over 50% of its airframe constructed from this lightweight yet incredibly strong material. Its wings, fuselage, doors, and empennage all benefited from this composite approach, a leap forward from the earlier uses of CFRP seen in the Boeing 737 Classic and 777 tail structures. While Airbus chose a more traditional frame and panel method for the A350, Boeing's decision to use one-piece composite barrels gave the Dreamliner a technological edge, but also introduced major risks. Now, that edge is being overshadowed by a relentless stream of manufacturing flaws and safety warnings. On March 20, 2025, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, issued an airworthiness directive, urging airlines to inspect the 787's forward pressure bulkhead, a vital structural component responsible for maintaining cabin pressure at cruising altitude. The concern? a pattern of improper gaps, misaligned fasteners, and deviations from Boeing's own technical specifications. While these flaws might not pose an immediate threat, the FAA warned that over time they could lead to fatigue cracks, corrosion, or even structural collapse at 35,000 feet. This isn't an isolated issue. Since 2020, Boeing has paused Dreamliner deliveries multiple times due to serious production problems, especially errors in how fuselage sections are joined. To manage the growing backlog, the company established so-called shadow factories outside of their main production lines, essentially secret repair sites where over 120 already built jets were reworked. Go back to 2013, and you'll remember the global grounding of the 787 fleet due to lithium-ion battery fires. It was a major black eye for a jet that was supposed to represent Boeing's future. But the problems haven't stopped. In early 2025, another threat emerged, this time in the form of a radio software glitch. The FAA released a little-noticed document proposing that Boeing be required to correct the issue, which could potentially result in a catastrophic communication failure mid-flight. Turbulence issue. Frequent reports of severe turbulence aboard Boeing 787 Dreamliners have increasingly sparked concern among passengers and aviation experts. While turbulence can affect any aircraft, recent high-profile incidents involving the 787 have drawn significant attention. On March 27, 2025, United Airlines Flight UA-1, a 787-9 from San Francisco to Singapore, encountered sudden severe clear air turbulence over the Philippines. The aircraft shook violently for about 20 seconds at 40,000 feet, injuring one flight attendant seriously and 4 others with minor injuries. The jet continued safely to Singapore, where medical teams awaited. Earlier, in March 2024, LATAM Flight 800, en route from Sydney to Auckland, experienced a sudden drop, injuring 50 of the 272 people on board. Many passengers and objects were thrown into the ceiling, with some sustaining serious injuries. Add to this a well-documented 2023 Air Europa 787 incident. Severe turbulence caused multiple casualties, including a passenger trapped in an overhead bin, triggering an emergency diversion to Brazil. More recently, October 11, 2023, Air Canada's Boeing 787 encountered unexpected turbulence on its Vancouver-Singapore flight. Videos captured meal trays and passengers flying amid the cabin, though no serious injuries were reported. Experts warn these incidents may signal a growing trend. Research suggests clear air turbulence, often invisible and unpredictable, is increasing due to climate change. A University of Reading study estimated a 55% rise in severe clear air turbulence over the North Atlantic between 1979 and 2020. Airlines, including United and Singapore Airlines, have responded by tightening crew protocols, such as halting hot beverage service at peak turbulence risk times. Though Boeing 787s handle turbulence robustly, the surge in severe events raises urgent safety questions. Are current forecasting tools sufficient? Do crew protocols need an overhaul? As clearer aviation data emerge, regulatory bodies and airlines must reassess guidelines to ensure passenger and crew safety during these increasingly common encounters. Danger exposed. Boeing's turbulent start to 2024 didn't end with a terrifying mid-air blowout on Alaska Airlines Flight 1282. It only deepened when an insider stepped forward. Sam Salahpour, a seasoned quality engineer who has been with Boeing since 2007, has now gone public with claims that could shake the foundation of the aircraft giant's credibility. His revelations about the 787 Dreamliner have raised alarm bells, not only within the industry, but also at the highest levels of regulatory oversight. After the January blowout incident on the 737 MAX 9 at around 16,000 feet, The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, had already begun scrutinizing Boeing's production practices. But the pressure ramped up significantly after Salehpour testified before a Senate subcommittee on April 17th. What he shared wasn't just shocking, it could signal the beginning of a much larger crisis. Salehpour alleges that critical components of the Boeing 787's fuselage were not fastened properly during manufacturing. Over time, this could result in the aircraft literally ripping apart mid-flight. According to him, employees were encouraged to apply force to make gaps between metal sections disappear, just so production targets could be met. In other words, corners were being cut, and safety was being compromised for the sake of speed and profit. He didn't just keep these concerns to himself. Salehpour said he alerted supervisors and tried to escalate the matter. But instead of being taken seriously, he was reassigned to the Boeing 777 program, a move he believes was a way to silence him. Even there, he reported similar issues, only to face retaliation. He even claims one supervisor threatened him with physical harm. What changed everything for him was the Alaska Airlines incident. Fearing that the Dreamliner's structural weaknesses could lead to another disaster, he decided to act. Through his attorney, Deborah Katz, he formally submitted a complaint to the FAA. The letter didn't just detail faults in the 787, it also pointed to alarming assembly flaws in the Boeing 777. These accusations come at a time when public confidence in Boeing is already fragile. With FAA investigations underway and Senate interest heating up, the aviation world is watching closely. What Boeing doesn't want you to know. When a Boeing engineer, Sam Salehpour, publicly accused the company of failing to properly fasten the fuselage sections of its 787 Dreamliners, it reignited concerns already simmering in the aviation world. The FAA launched an official investigation following his claims, but interestingly, they did not ground any aircraft during the process. While this may sound like a one-off red flag, the reality is far more troubling, and it goes back over a decade. This isn't Boeing's first brush with major scrutiny. In 2018, the FAA took the drastic step of grounding all U.S.-operated 787s after two separate incidents involving overheating lithium-ion batteries. One of them even caught fire while the plane was parked in Boston, exposing vulnerabilities in the aircraft's design. It took until April of that year, and a complete battery overhaul before the FAA cleared the aircraft for flight again. Fast forward to 2019, and Boeing's problems had shifted from electronics to manufacturing. Quality control issues forced the company to scale down production. By January 2021, Dreamliner deliveries were temporarily halted entirely. It took until August 2022 for the FAA to greenlight the delivery of another 787. But only after Boeing performed thorough inspections and implemented structural changes to meet certification standards. In response to Salehpour's revelations, Boeing dismissed the claims, firmly defending the integrity of both the 787 and 777 lines. The company maintains that the wide-body aircraft are safe, structurally sound, and in compliance with FAA oversight. They say that previous concerns have already been thoroughly examined and that the planes meet all current airworthiness requirements. Originally launched as a fuel-efficient aircraft capable of carrying 200 to 300 passengers on routes spanning up to 8,500 nautical miles, the Dreamliner was designed to revolutionize long-haul travel. But what started as a triumph of engineering has, over the years, evolved into a symbol of repeated missteps, many of which have left regulators, airlines, and the flying public on edge. Trust, once Boeing's greatest asset, now hangs by a thread. Boeing's breaking point. Boeing is in crisis. The recent resignation of CEO Dave Calhoun isn't just a leadership shakeup. It marks a turning point for a company still reeling from years of safety failures, engineering flaws, and public scrutiny. Pressure has been mounting from regulators, airlines, and the public, especially after the alarming January 5th incident in which a door plug on a nearly new 737 MAX 9 tore off mid-flight. That wasn't just another mishap, it shattered whatever public confidence Boeing still had left. In a letter to employees, Calhoun described the Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 accident as a watershed moment. His message called for transparency, humility, and a renewed commitment to safety, phrases Boeing has repeated often but rarely backed with lasting change. Despite insisting the decision to step down was 100% his own, many industry insiders see it as the start of a long overdue transformation in Boeing's leadership and direction. But the issues run deeper than corporate reshuffles. Airlines using Boeing's Dreamliner aircraft are being forced into non-stop repairs and safety checks, throwing their schedules and finances into chaos. Each new defect means more grounding, more inspections, and more cost. Frustrated and fed up, many carriers are now turning to Airbus's A350, a direct competitor praised for its performance and reliability. At a time when post-pandemic aviation is all about survival and efficiency, Boeing's instability is proving too risky for some. What's more, the FAA recently issued a new directive targeting the Dreamliner's pressure bulkhead, a critical part of the aircraft's structure. This has intensified fears about Boeing's safety practices and added fuel to the fire of public and professional distrust. These concerns aren't just tied to current issues either. The memory of the two deadly 737 MAX crashes in 2018 and 2019, killing 346 people, still looms large. Beyond fixing individual aircraft, Boeing now faces a far more daunting challenge: rebuilding its identity. The company once stood as a symbol of American innovation and engineering excellence. Today, it represents corporate failure, delayed accountability, and compromised safety. Whistleblower controversy. John Barnett, a respected Boeing quality control manager for over 32 years, emerged as a prominent whistleblower between 2017 and 2024, raising alarms about serious safety issues in the Boeing 787 Dreamliner production. He reported widespread defects, metal shavings near critical wiring, malfunctioning emergency oxygen systems, missing or substandard parts, and questionable build record practices. These warnings prompted FAA scrutiny and remedial actions. Barnett filed whistleblower complaints with OSHA in 2017 under the FAA's AIR-21 program. Although OSHA initially ruled in Boeing's favor in 2021, he appealed and continued to press his case. He also went public in 2019, appearing in media outlets and the Netflix documentary Downfall: The Case Against Boeing. In early March 2024, while deposing for his legal case, Barnett was found dead in his parked truck outside a Charleston hotel. The Charleston County coroner ruled the death self-inflicted with a firearm, citing a note reading, "I can't do this any longer. I pray Boeing pays." Video evidence confirmed no interference, but his attorneys and family strongly disputed this conclusion, pointing to his positive mood and the concern he expressed regarding his safety. In March 2025, his family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Boeing, alleging that sustained harassment, intimidation, and professional isolation caused his severe depression, PTSD, and eventual breakdown. The suit claims Boeing's campaign of abuse was the clear, foreseeable cause of John's death. Barnett's revelations and the tragic aftermath underscore growing concerns about Boeing's internal safety culture. Critics argue that retaliating against safety whistleblowers not only silences crucial voices, but also actively endangers the traveling public. As Boeing faces legal and reputational repercussions, the industry must reassess its protection for those who dare to speak up. Boeing 787 nightmare. What began as a routine flight turned into India's worst aviation disaster in over a decade. Air India Flight AI-171, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, lifted off from Ahmedabad's Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport on its way to London. But within seconds, the aircraft issued a chilling mayday call. Eyewitnesses saw the jet struggling to gain altitude, its wings unnaturally rigid. Moments later, it plummeted straight into the BJ Medical College hostel in Miani Naga, exploding on impact. What followed was total chaos. Flames erupted. Smoke towered above the city. Emergency responders were immediately overwhelmed by intense heat, debris, and structural collapse. On board were 241 people, including 169 Indian nationals, 53 British citizens, 7 Portuguese nationals, a Canadian, and 11 crew members. The crash left only one survivor, 23-year-old Vishwash Kumar Rock, who escaped the torn fuselage with severe injuries. His account from a hospital bed was India's only moment of fragile hope amid overwhelming tragedy. But the destruction didn't end there. 33 people from the hostel and nearby buildings also lost their lives. The confirmed death toll rose to 274. Families gathered outside makeshift morgues, submitting DNA and dental records, desperate to identify loved ones. The nation watched in horror as the reality unfolded. In response, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, DGCA, grounded all 34 Dreamliners in India for immediate technical inspection. The focus was on fuel systems, flap mechanisms, and especially the electronic engine controls, areas previously flagged in global safety reports involving GEnx engines. Boeing's 787 had enjoyed an excellent safety record, over 7 million flight hours with no hull loss incidents. But that record was now under scrutiny. Boeing and GE Aerospace dispatched expert teams to India. Meanwhile, black box recovery teams navigated twisted wreckage and rising temperatures to retrieve critical flight data and cockpit voice recordings. Investigators are now examining whether a software malfunction in the engine's FADEC system, Full Authority Digital Engine Control, could have caused a sudden thrust imbalance. Another potential concern is a known vulnerability in the Dreamliner's angle of attack sensors, issues tied to uncommanded nose-down behavior in past cases. This disaster raises alarming questions. Were earlier maintenance issues overlooked? Did recent software patches unintentionally create instability? What they found inside I-171's black boxes changed everything. The horrific crash of Air India Flight AI-171 on June 12, 2025, shocked the world. But what's even more shocking is what investigators just uncovered inside the aircraft's black boxes. This wasn't just a routine malfunction. It could be a warning for every long-haul flight in the skies today. 2 separate enhanced airborne flight recorders were recovered, one from a rooftop and one from the wreckage site, within days of the crash. These recorders, which store both flight data and cockpit audio, are essential to recreating the last moments of any doomed flight. One captures every mechanical movement, flaps, engine thrust, fuel flow, and more. The other records every sound, pilot conversations, alarms, and even background noise in the cockpit. Now, investigators from India's AAIB, the US NTSB, and the UK's Air Accidents Investigation Branch are analyzing the data together. But the delay in retrieving and processing the data, nearly 2 weeks, has drawn sharp criticism from aviation experts who say that any lag in such crucial moments can hinder safety improvements. So, what have they found so far? Early theories suggested that the co-pilot may have mistakenly retracted the flaps instead of the landing gear during takeoff, an error that would instantly reduce lift and stall the plane. Eyewitnesses noted the absence of wing flex, a key indicator that flaps were never deployed correctly. Other usual suspects like bird strikes, engine failure, or weather issues have been ruled out. Meanwhile, the tragedy has sparked a massive public reaction. Hashtags like #JusticeForAI171 flooded social media, with candlelight vigils erupting across India and the UK. 53 British citizens were among the victims. Even the British royal family wore black armbands during the Trooping the Colour ceremony, a rare and symbolic tribute. Air India, now privatized under the Tata Group, offered compensation of 1 crore rupees, about $120,000 per victim, along with full medical coverage for survivors. But the damage to its reputation and to Boeing was far greater. Boeing's stock value plunged almost 9% amid renewed concerns over its aircraft systems. This isn't just a story about a crash. It's about whether pilot training programs are failing, whether aircraft control designs need to be rethought, and whether regulatory bodies are truly ready to act swiftly when disaster strikes. The world is watching. As experts decode every second captured in the cockpit and simulate the doomed flight down to the last data point, one thing is clear: this incident will likely redefine aviation safety standards across continents. Boeing's battle for trust. Boeing once stood as a towering symbol of American engineering excellence. But now, the aviation giant finds itself fighting for credibility in an industry where a single error can destroy decades of trust. The Dreamliner, once celebrated as the future of long-haul travel, is now at the center of a storm. The FAA recently issued an airworthiness directive identifying structural flaws near the forward pressure bulkhead, an issue that isn't just technical but symbolic of a much deeper problem. This revelation has sent shockwaves through the industry as it points to systemic failures within Boeing's quality control and production oversight. What makes this more alarming is the pattern. This isn't the first time Boeing's reputation has taken a hit. From the 737 MAX disasters to the January 2024 incident in which a door plug blew off mid-flight, the company's recent history is marred by crises that suggest more than isolated mishaps. Those crashes resulted in hundreds of deaths, global groundings, and the eventual resignation of top executives, including CEO Dave Calhoun. These events exposed a corporate culture that, critics argue, prioritized deadlines and profits over safety and transparency. Now, under the leadership of Kelly Ortberg, Boeing is trying to rewrite the narrative. Ortberg arrived at the Paris Air Show, the biggest event in global aviation, with an agenda to convince the world that Boeing is back on track. With over 300 new orders secured and a significant ramp-up in 737 production, Boeing is making moves. But aviation analysts and insiders are not easily swayed. According to Paul Charles, CEO of the PC Agency, Boeing's leadership must remain highly visible and transparent if it hopes to rebuild trust. Meanwhile, Airbus continues to gain ground with its reliable A350 series. The European manufacturer has been quietly strengthening its foothold, offering consistency in a market where airlines cannot afford technical uncertainty. The post-pandemic aviation world is cutthroat. Margins are tight and operators are being far more selective. A growing number of carriers are beginning to shift their loyalty toward manufacturers with a track record of stability and strong safety performance. The issue with the Dreamliner's forward pressure bulkhead might sound minor to the public, but to industry experts, it's an alarm bell. It brings up a critical question. Does Boeing still value engineering integrity, or has it become reactive, chasing damage control after every misstep? This isn't just about fixing a part, it's about confronting a cultural and operational crisis from within. If Boeing fails to enact bold structural reforms across its leadership, supply chain, and quality assurance programs, it risks more than lost orders. It risks becoming irrelevant in the very industry it helped build.